Hi everyone, my name is Chris Carmichael and I'm here to talk a little bit about supply. In my last video I spoke about the law of demand. Now it's time to move on to the law of supply. So without further ado, supply. What is supply? The quantities of a good that sellers are willing to offer at a series of alternative prices in a given market during a period of time. That is what supply is. Now, what is quantity supplied? Quantity supplied is how much of a good or service a seller is willing to offer at a single specified price in a given market at a given time. Quantity supplied and supply are different. They have a relationship with each other, but they mean different things. On to supply schedule. Now, what is a supply schedule, you ask? Well, a supply schedule is a schedule identifying specific price-quantity combinations that exist in a supply relationship. Let's move on. Quantities supplied. Basically what this is saying is when price goes up, supply will increase as well. When price goes down, supply will decrease. What this is saying is that the producer is deciding how much he wants to supply at a given market depending on the price. Now again, when we start looking into the law of supply, we must remember that supply and quantity supplied are related but different in meaning. We cannot say that when price goes up, supply goes up. Instead, we must say that when price increases, so will quantity supplied. Now, supply. The idea of supply is very related to that of demand. However, supply is the relationship between prices and quantities that sellers are willing to offer. Demand is what consumers are willing to buy at a certain price. Supply is what sellers are willing to offer at a certain price. So instead of the consumer deciding how much to purchase, the seller is determining how much supply to offer. Supply schedule. The supply schedule is basically a list of prices in a given market, and next to that price on the right is an amount of product the seller is willing to supply at that price. In the next slide, I will give an example of supply schedule, and I will also be giving an example of the supply curve that goes along with the supply schedule. Now, for example, here's a supply schedule of coffee per pound. Now, the price of coffee per pound starts out at $1. Well, at $1, the quantity supplied by the producer is going to be 8,000 pounds. It's not a lot of money, so he's not going to supply a lot. Well, you increase that price per pound of coffee to $2, he's going to say, well, okay, you know what, I'll bring 10,000 pounds. I'll supply 10,000 pounds of coffee beans. Okay, so now we've got $2, 10,000 pounds. Well, let's bump it up another $1. So the price of coffee goes up to $3. Well, that's a pretty big jump again. So we're going to say the seller is going to supply, the quantity that he's willing to supply this time is 16,000 pounds. And now coffee goes up another $1. So we're at $4 a pound. At $4 a pound, the producer says, okay, you know what, the quantity I'm going to supply today, or next year I should say, this is based on the next year, he's willing to supply 20,000 pounds at $4 per pound. So his quantity supplied at $4 is 20,000 pounds. Coffee shoots up to $5. Coffee producers are saying $5 a pound. Wow, you know what? I'm going to bring 24,000 pounds. I'm going to supply 24,000 pounds of coffee beans this next year. It's up to $5. We're going to knock it out of the ballpark. So now, as we move forward, let's plot these onto a that will be your supply curve. This right here is your supply curve. So we started out at coffee being $1. Now we move up, and it's 6,000 pounds. He was willing to produce 8,000 pounds. 8,000 pounds. We move up to $2 a pound for coffee, and the producer is willing to produce 12,000 pounds. Okay? So that's your second point. Starting from the bottom left of your screen, moving up, we started at $1 a pound, 8,000 pounds. That's the bottom left. Moved up to the next point on the line on the supply curve, $2, 12,000 pounds. Went up to $3. The producer is willing to offer 16,000 pounds at $4 per pound. Now we moved up at $3 per pound, at $3 per pound. We move up to $4 per pound. The producer is willing to offer 20,000 pounds. We get to the last point on the graph. Coffee hits $5. The producer is willing to offer 24,000 pounds of coffee. That is your. So let's wrap it up. As I have noted in previous slides, supply and quantity supplied are very much related but different in meaning. I showed you how price directly affects the quantity supplied by a producer. I also showed you how to plot a supply schedule, giving you a supply curve. This supply curve shows the relationship between price and quantity. The supply is a relationship as opposed to a quantity. All in all, this was an overview of the law of supply.